June 29th, 1994, 7:47 p.m., Kensington Palace. Diana stood in her bedroom staring at the black dress hanging on the door. She'd planned to wear something else tonight, something safe, conservative, appropriate for a princess attending a charity gala at the Serpentine Gallery. But that was before she learned what was happening tonight. That was before she discovered that at the exact same time she would be walking into the gallery, her husband, Prince Charles, would be appearing on national television to confess his affair with Camilla Parker Bowles. The palace hadn't told her. She'd found out from a friend who'd seen the TV listings. While Diana attended a charity event, Charles would sit down with journalist Jonathan Dimbleby and admit to the entire world what Diana had known for years. He'd never stopped loving Camilla. He'd been unfaithful. Their marriage was a sham. The timing wasn't accidental. The palace had coordinated it perfectly. While the world watched Charles's confession on television, Diana would be at some forgettable charity event, unable to respond, hidden away where she couldn't steal his headlines. They thought they could bury her. They thought she would quietly disappear while Charles controlled the narrative. They were wrong. Diana looked at the black dress again. She'd bought it 3 years ago from designer Christina Stambolian, but had never worn it. It was too daring, too revealing, too bold. The palace would hate it. Royal protocol would be scandalized by it, which was exactly why, at 7:47 p.m. on June 29th, 1994, Diana decided to wear it. If Charles wants to destroy our marriage on television, she thought, then I'll show the world I don't need him. She put on the dress. She looked in the mirror, and she smiled. Because Diana understood something that Charles and the palace didn't. She knew how to command attention. She knew how to make a statement. She knew how to win. And tonight, with one dress, she was about to destroy Charles's carefully planned confession and remind the world who the real star of this marriage had always been. This is the story of the revenge dress, the night Diana turned humiliation into triumph. The moment she stopped being a victim and became an icon. June 29th, 1994, 8 p.m., ITV Studios, London. At the same moment Diana was stepping into her dress, Prince Charles was sitting in a television studio, preparing for the most important interview of his life. Jonathan Dimbleby, the respected journalist conducting the interview, had spent months preparing. This wasn't going to be a puff piece. This was Charles's opportunity to explain himself, to control the narrative about his marriage, to finally address the rumors that had plagued him for years. The palace had orchestrated everything carefully. The interview would air at 8:30 p.m. during prime time. The major newspapers had been briefed in advance. The royal spin machine was ready to manage the fallout, and Diana would be safely tucked away at a charity event, unable to respond, unable to steal focus. At least, that's what they thought. Charles adjusted his tie. He was nervous but determined. Tonight, he would tell his side of the story. Tonight, he would admit that yes, he had been unfaithful to Diana, but only after the marriage had irretrievably broken down. He would position himself as a man, trapped in an impossible situation, doing his best under difficult circumstances. The cameras began rolling. Dimbleby asked the question that the entire country wanted answered. Did you try to be faithful and honorable to your wife when you took on the vow of marriage? Charles paused, took a breath, and then said the words that would define his public image for decades. Yes, until it became irretrievably broken down, us both having tried. There it was. The admission, the confession. Prince Charles had committed adultery. The interview continued for another 2 hours, covering everything from Charles's childhood to his role as future king. But everyone watching knew the only headline tomorrow would be Charles's admission of infidelity. The palace's plan had worked. Charles had controlled the narrative. He'd admitted wrongdoing but framed it as understandable. He'd positioned himself as sympathetic. Now they just had to wait for the public reaction. They didn't have to wait long. June 29th, 1994, 8:32 p.m., the Serpentine Gallery, London. Diana's car pulled up to the Serpentine Gallery at precisely 8:32 p.m. just 2 minutes after Charles' interview had begun airing on television. The photographers were there, of course. They were always there when Diana appeared in public. But tonight, they were mostly just going through the motions. The real story was happening on television. Charles's confession, that's what would dominate tomorrow's headlines. Diana's arrival at a charity gala would be a minor footnote, relegated to page 5 or 6 if it was covered at all. The car door opened, and Diana stepped out. The cameras started clicking. Immediately standard protocol for any royal appearance. But then the photographers actually looked at what they were photographing, and they went absolutely insane. Diana was wearing a dress unlike anything they'd ever seen her wear in public. A black, off-the-shoulder cocktail dress by Christina Stambolian. It hugged her figure perfectly. The neckline was daringly low. The hem hit just above the knee. It was sexy, confident, and completely inappropriate by stuffy royal standards. Diana's legs, famous. Legs that the palace had always insisted be. Covered in appropriate length, skirts were clearly visible. Her shoulders, bare shoulders, were exposed. Her expression wasn't the shy, demure smile of a wronged wife. It was the confident, almost defiant look of a woman who knew exactly what she was doing. The photographers went wild. Hundreds of camera flashes exploded simultaneously. Photographers started shouting, "Diana! Over here, give us a smile. You look incredible." Diana paused. She knew the cameras were there. She knew this was her moment. She smiled. Not a sad smile, not a brave smile. A genuine, confident, victorious smile. And in that moment, Diana won. June 29th, 1994, 9:15 p.m. Newspaper. Offices across London. Editors at every major newspaper in London were frantically reworking their front pages. They'd all prepared the same story for tomorrow's edition. Charles admits affair. The photos were ready, stills from the television. Interview showing. Charles looking serious and remorseful. The headlines were written. The analysis pieces were laid out. Everything was set. And then the photos from the Serpentine Gallery started coming in. The first editor to see them actually gasped out loud. "Forget the Charles interview," he told his photo editor. "This is the front page." Within an hour, every major newspaper in Britain had made the same decision. The carefully planned coverage of Charles's confession was relegated to inside pages. The front page, the prime real estate that would be seen by millions of people, belonged to Diana, and specifically to the dress. The Daily Mail went with the full-page photo, takes Charles to the cleaners. The Sun, the thriller he left to woo Camilla. The Mirror, Di takes revenge. The Times, usually staid and serious, ran a massive photo above the fold with the simple caption, "Princess of Wales arrives at Serpentine Gallery event." But everyone knew what the photo really said. "I don't need him. I'm free, I won." Charles's confession, the carefully orchestrated, prime-time, controlled-the-narrative confession, was buried. His admission of adultery, which should have dominated the news cycle, became a secondary story, because Diana, in one dress, had stolen every headline. June 30th, 1994, 8:23 a.m., Kensington Palace. Diana sat at her breakfast table, surrounded by newspapers. Every single one had her on the front page. The photos were stunning, her in the black dress, smiling, confident, victorious. The headlines were even better. "Revenge takes Charles to the cleaners, the thriller he left." She'd done it. She'd taken the worst night, the night her husband publicly admitted betraying her, and turned it into her triumph. Her private secretary came in looking stressed. "Ma'am, the palace is... they're very upset." "Are they?" Diana said, sipping her tea, not looking up from the newspapers. "They're saying you deliberately upstaged the prince, that you chose that dress specifically to steal focus from his interview." Diana looked up, her eyes innocent. "I simply wore a dress to a charity event. How could I possibly have known it would generate this much interest?" Her secretary suppressed a smile. "They both knew the truth. They want you to issue a statement. Something about supporting the prince during this difficult time." "No? Ma'am?" "No statement. No apology. No comment. Let the photos speak for themselves." And they did. The dress, Let's talk about the dress itself, because it became one of the most iconic garments in fashion history. Designer Christina Stambolian had created it in 1991. Diana had purchased it shortly after, but had never worn it publicly. It sat in her wardrobe for 3 years, waiting. The dress was made of black silk crepe. The neckline was asymmetrical, off the shoulder on one side, with a dramatic sweetheart cut. It hugged Diana's waist and hips before falling to just above the knee. The back was relatively modest, but the front was daring by royal standards. Diana had almost worn it several times before, but had always chickened out at the last minute. It was too bold, too sexy, too much. But on June 29, 1994, too much was exactly what Diana needed. She paired it with sheer black tights, black heels, and a pearl choker with a large sapphire clasp, the same choker she'd worn as a headband in Australia years earlier, a subtle nod to her ability to break royal protocol. Her hair was styled in her signature short, elegant cut. Her makeup was perfect but not overdone. She wore pearl earrings, classic, but the dress was the statement. Christina Stambolian later said, "I was really worried that Diana wore it the same night as Charles's interview. I thought it might look like she was trying to upstage him." Then she smiled. But of course that's exactly what she was doing. And it worked perfectly. The dress was later nicknamed the revenge dress by the media. The name stuck, and it's how the dress is still known today, more than 30 years later. What the dress really meant. The revenge dress wasn't just about looking good. It was a carefully calculated message, delivered through fashion. Message number 1, I don't need you. For years, Diana had played by the palace's rules. Conservative clothes, appropriate hemlines, nothing too revealing, nothing too attention-grabbing. The palace had controlled her image, using her as a demure, fairy tale princess who smiled and waved and never caused trouble. The revenge dress said, I'm done playing by your rules. By wearing something the palace would hate, Diana declared her independence. She was no longer the controlled, managed princess. She was her own woman. Message number 2, you made a mistake. Charles's confession was supposed to make people sympathize with him. Poor Charles, trapped in a loveless marriage with a difficult wife. He did his best. He only turned to Camilla when things were already broken. The revenge dress destroyed that narrative instantly. When people saw Diana, beautiful, confident, glowing, they didn't think poor Charles stuck with her. They thought, what an idiot! He had her, and he chose Camilla. The dress reminded everyone what Charles had given up. Message number 3, I'm the star. For 13 years, Diana had been told she was secondary. Charles was the important one, the future king, the one who mattered. Diana was just the wife, the mother, the supporting character. The revenge dress reminded everyone of the truth. Diana was the star. She was the one people wanted to see. She was the one who commanded attention. Charles could give all the interviews he wanted. He could control the narrative all he liked. But the moment Diana stepped out of that car, she owned the story. Message number 4, I'm free. Perhaps most importantly, the dress said, I'm free now. Free from the marriage. Free from the pretense. Free from trying to make Charles love her. Free from caring what the palace thought. The dress was celebratory. It was a woman who had just been publicly humiliated, choosing to celebrate instead of hide. It was Diana saying, you can't hurt me anymore. I'm done caring. The palace's response. Privately, the palace was furious. Charles' carefully planned interview, months of preparation, strategic timing, controlled messaging had been completely overshadowed by one dress. The headlines they'd wanted. Charles admits affair but explains. Context had been replaced with Diana looks stunning while Charles confesses. The sympathetic narrative they'd crafted for Charles, a man trapped in an impossible situation, had been destroyed by photos of the wife he'd betrayed, looking absolutely incredible. They knew Diana had done it deliberately. The timing was too perfect. The dress was too calculated, but they couldn't say anything. Because officially, Diana had just attended a charity event. She'd worn a dress. She'd smiled for cameras. What could they possibly accuse her of? Looking too good? Being too confident? stealing headlines by simply existing, so they said nothing publicly. But behind the scenes, the knives came out. Palace sources briefed journalists that Diana was attention-seeking and manipulative. They suggested she was unstable and struggling with the separation. But nobody believed it, because the photos told a different story. Diana didn't look unstable. She looked powerful. What happened next? The revenge dress moment changed everything for Diana. Before June 29, 1994, Diana was often portrayed as a victim, the wronged wife, the sad princess, the woman who couldn't hold her marriage together. After the revenge dress, Diana was a different figure entirely. She was strong, independent, a woman who could turn humiliation into triumph. The dress became a cultural moment. Women around the world understood exactly what Diana was doing. They'd seen the photos of her in previous years, always appropriately dressed, always following the rules, always trying to be the perfect princess. And now here she was, done with perfection, done with rules, done with caring what anyone thought. It was empowering. It was inspirational. It was exactly what millions of women wanted to do when they'd been wronged. Look incredible and make their ex regret everything. Fashion magazines started calling it power dressing, this idea that clothes could be armor, that the right outfit could be a weapon. Diana wore other memorable outfits in the years that followed, but none of them had quite the impact of the revenge dress. Because the revenge dress wasn't just about fashion, it was about a woman reclaiming her power, a woman refusing to be buried, a woman turning her worst moment into her victory. Christina Stambolian's career. For designer Christina Stambolian, the revenge dress changed everything. Before June 29, 1994, she was a relatively unknown designer. She had a small clientele. Diana was her most famous customer, but Diana had never worn her designs to high-profile events. After the revenge dress, Stambolian became internationally famous overnight. Orders flooded in. Women wanted the Diana dress or something like it. Fashion magazines wanted to interview her. Other celebrities started wearing her designs. Stambolian was smart enough to recognize the moment for what it was. She later said, "That dress gave Diana her power back. And it gave me mine too." She continued designing for decades, always grateful to Diana for taking a chance on that daring black dress. "Diana could have worn something safe that night," Stambolian said. "She could have played it conservative. But she didn't. She chose bravery. And she changed both of our lives." The lasting impact. More than 30 years later, the revenge dress remains one of the most iconic fashion moments in history. It's been referenced in movies, TV shows, music videos, and fashion editorials. When celebrities want to make a statement after a breakup, they're often described as having a revenge dress moment. Kate Middleton, Diana's daughter-in-law, has occasionally worn pieces that echo the revenge dress, off-shoulder gowns, daring necklines, moments of fashion boldness that feel like tributes to Diana's iconic night. Fashion historians consider it one of the most important dresses of the 20th century, not because of its design, though it was beautiful, but because of what it represented, a woman using fashion as power, as protest, as revenge. And for Diana personally, the revenge dress was a turning point. After that night, she stopped trying to please the palace. She stopped caring what Charles thought. She stopped playing by rules that were designed to diminish her. She became her own person. She dated who she wanted. She wore what she wanted. She spoke her mind in interviews. She used her celebrity for causes she believed in. The revenge dress was the moment Diana stopped being a princess and became an icon. June 29, 2024, 30 years later. This year marks the 30th anniversary of the revenge dress moment. Fashion magazines around the world have published retrospectives. The dress that changed fashion, Diana's most iconic moment, 30 years of the revenge dress. The dress itself is reportedly in a private collection, though Kensington Palace has occasionally displayed photos of it in Diana exhibitions. And women around the world still understand exactly what that dress meant. It meant, "You can't destroy me." It meant, "I'm stronger than you think." It meant, "Watch me turn your victory into my triumph." On June 29th, 1994, Prince Charles tried to control the narrative of his failed marriage. He tried to bury Diana while he explained himself to the world. And Diana, in one black dress, reminded everyone of a fundamental truth. You can't bury a star. You can only make her shine brighter. So here we stand at the end of this story, understanding that the revenge dress wasn't just about fashion, it was about power, independence, and a woman refusing to be anyone's victim. It was about Diana taking the worst night of her life and turning it into her victory. What do you think? Was Diana right to upstage Charles's confession? Was the revenge dress a calculated move or just a coincidence? And what does it say about Diana that her response to public humiliation was to look absolutely incredible? Share your thoughts in the comments below. This is where we celebrate Diana's strength, where we recognize the power of taking control of your own narrative, where we remember that sometimes the best revenge is simply refusing to be diminished. If this story inspired you the way Diana inspired millions, please subscribe. There are more moments of Diana's strength, more times she fought back, more evidence that she was so much more than a victim. Together, we'll remember every moment Diana refused to be buried. Together, we'll celebrate the woman who turned humiliation into triumph. With one perfect dress,